Access granted.
Subject: interview with Brian Flynn from SUPER7. Body: on 10/18/2023, Christopher McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80, was tasked with the mission of interviewing the awesome Brian Flynn from SUPER7 about their brand new G.I. Joe Reaction Mothership crowdfunding campaign, as well as a number of updates for the Ultimates line. Here's what we could show you from that G14 classified recording.
Access granted.
Hello and welcome to the Full Force Redacted, brought to you by Generals Joe's Reborn.com with me, Christopher McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. On the show today, we have the SUPER7 Mothership Commander and Full Force regular Brian Flynn to chat about their brand new Cobra Mothership project, as well as some Ultimates updates and other stuff. Brian, thank you so much for spending the time to do this with me yet again. How are you doing?
Doing good. Just back from New York Comic-Con, which was on the heels of New York Toy Fair. So
not very busy then.
It's been a long month.
I can imagine.
Halloween's not even here yet.
I know, and you guys have got so much Halloween stuff that you do as well. So yeah, not very busy then at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So
Nothing going on.
yeah, so we can just shoot the breeze then, really, can't we? There's not much in the news. You guys haven't really revealed anything. Kidding. Yeah, let's obviously talk about the elephant in the room, because it's about the size of an elephant, isn't it? The Cobra Mothership. Now, you guys revealed this kind of sneakily during SDC. I say sneakily. It's not really something you can sneakily reveal. It's just this huge thing. Now, that was at SDCC, but then we waited for a while before you guys came out with any kind of official info. I mean, take us through the decision to go with this Mothership. Why the Mothership? Well,
I mean, there aren't very many G.I. Joe vehicles that haven't been rendered in 3 3/4 scale.
True.
I mean, like I've said before, I mean, with G.I. Joe more than most other toy lines, the vehicles are as integral as everything else.
Yeah.
You know, they did a great job over the years of just like, hey, let's make this vehicle, let's make that vehicle, let's make this vehicle. You know, there's vehicles galore, if you will.
There's loads. So, yeah.
This is one of the few that hasn't been touched, and surprisingly, at least for me, it's just one of the coolest looking ones. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's incredible looking. Like, one thing actually that struck me, which you might be able to talk on here, there's like, it's got Millennium Falcon vibes in the paneling comes off in a certain way and exposes certain segments. Was that like an inspiration in terms of how you kind of went about this particular thing? Was that something that even you guys considered?
You know, it wasn't overtly considered per se. You know, it's like you've got this big, you know, it's because it's a round ship. The top comes off. It's Millennium Falcon. It's a flying hamburger. You know, no, it was more just, you know, you got to take off the top and then you build the play set inside. You've got all this room, so there's so much storytelling that can be made in there.
Oh, totally. So, I mean, and of course, all those features, there's so many of them. There's like the little jail cell, and there's the little bombs that drop out of that one segment and move along. There's the armory, there's the communication center, there's the panels that come up. There's all sorts of stuff on this. What's your favorite feature of that interior? Because there's so many fun little things in there.
The bomb rack actually is my favorite
It's
part.
So cool, that, isn't it? It's so awesome.
Yeah. You know, because it's also the same thing. It's like, oh, that's a really cool play feature. It's really unexpected. Like, I'm not saying the jail is expected or the armory is expected, but it's like, oh, okay, yeah, makes complete sense. But you're like, oh, it's a rack of bombs that drop out. You're like, I was not expecting that.
Totally.
You know?
And obviously they come out of one little section and they move along as well, don't they? So it's like they kind of drop and then move and then drop. That's so much fun. Yeah. Is we've seen it on the 3D video. How is that operated by just a user, as it were, a consumer?
I mean, you slide them along, and when you get to the end, they click out.
I see. So it's manual or anything. There's no like little button. Yeah.
You're still a kid playing with this thing.
Totally.
Even if you're a 50-year-old kid.
Well, that's what. Yeah, it's close. The fact that there isn't much in the way of reference material for this, because you've got the intro, effectively, which is probably the best reference and source for this particular vehicle, and then you have a couple of episodes that it pops up in very briefly, like it's in, I think, My Favorite Things by Serpentor, when Serpentor's in it, kind of pretty, you know, predominantly. Was that a bit of a challenge for you guys, or did you just kind of like was it a case of just making some cool stuff up in a lot of cases?
Well, it's a bit of both. I mean, the first is, if it was truly in scale to 3 3/4, it would have to be like 20 feet wide.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You're not going to have the trench run going on.
The trouble bubbles come out of the mouth, you know? So that's the first thing, is like, how do you cram it all down small enough that it's reasonable?
Yeah.
You know, it's still almost a yard wide, but like that's still small enough to make it reasonable.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing, because, you know, you start to think about all the cool things. It's like, oh, you know, in the intro they have like literally like a trench run across the top of it. You know, there's giant cannons and gun, you know, it's like, all right, well, we can't make the top, but then how do you get that cannon gun feel? Like, what is it? And it's like, oh, okay, well, this, you know, we can make the guns flip up out of the side, where the gunner stations are that flip up out of the top. You know, how would it have been retranslated into a toy had you made it in the 1980s?
Well, that's true, because
that's
I mean,
really what we tried to do.
Yeah, because you look at like a lot of those back in the day, and like it's not like the flag's probably the closest they got to an almost scaled sort of military vehicle, which is crazy when you think about it. But like, like the HQ obviously was a lot smaller. The Terradrome was, you know, they had to kind of really think about that. So it's a similar kind of situation that you guys are having to deal with here. But the one thing that kind of struck me about it, with there's just so many features on it. And that's something that, you get that in the old school vehicles and stuff, but there's so much in here. There's electronics. You got the lights on the bottom. Yeah,
the lights are definitely pushing it into a more modern thing, but it was also like, you know, when it flies over in that intro, you see all the lights, and originally we're like, oh, we should do it glow in the dark. But I was like, you know, it's not quite this. Like, if that guy, you know, you want to be able to turn out the lights and see it.
Yeah, it'd be really difficult to see the bottom. Yeah,
ended up we were able to do LEDs in there. Yeah,
that's phenomenal. And of course, you've got those like 3 stands as well to make it look like it's taking off, which is really nice. Did I hear you say that the light would kind of shine in those stands as well?
No, because they plug into a different thing. They wouldn't plug in. No.
Yeah, they plug into separate. Yeah, from what I could see, they plug into separrait ports. But it might have been it might have been a comment on one of our videos when we were talking about it, where someone mentioned that, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. If that's the case,
it's an interesting idea.
Hard to execute.
So if there's enough room between the support that the thickness and the support of the plastic that you have to put to actually hold the weight there, to actually have a light come from above.
How heavy is it? Is there a weight on this?
Well, obviously we're holding outputs right now. I mean, it'll be heavy. It's not going to be like,
it's not small, small child, cat.
You know, it's going to weigh more than a Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, like 5. Yeah.
But less than a cement cinder block.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good. Very good to know. One of the biggest surprises, though, I have to say, when the reveal happened, was the addition of an O-ring figure. Now, we'll hold off on talking about that for a second. We'll talk about the actual characters that you've gone with here, the kind of Viper Gunner and Viper Officer for like both reaction and O-ring. And we'll talk about the O-ring significance in a second. But with the actual characters you've kind of done there, are they creations of your own, or is that something from the cartoon? Because I don't think I've seen reference for that.
No, there is no technical Viper Gunner that we could find. You know, we're trying to figure out like who's going to be flying this thing, who's in here, and it's like, all right, we kind of kept going and going and going, and it's like, well, there's nothing specific, but the Viper, you know, the Vipers are always everything you need them to be, unless it's the Viper who's coming to
wash your windows.
Windows.
Could you imagine putting him an army building that character for this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we kind of went back and forth, and we're like, all right, what makes sense? You know, once again, in universe was more of a Viper Gunner. Like, who's that gunner? Well, it'd be a Viper. You know, because there's so many different Viper specialities out there.
Yeah.
So that's where the Viper Gunner came from.
No, that's cool.
Because you needed a gunner on the ship.
No, I like it. I like the fact that you guys do these kind of like little Super 7 additions to the brand. Like, it's nice to have new things and new kind of characters and new troop builders and stuff like that. Because obviously, this isn't the first time you've kind of, you know, been creative in creating like characters in universe in the reaction kind of line. So it's great to see. I'd also say as well, let's talk about the O-ring thing, because that was a real shocker. So there was a time when Hasbro would never allow anyone really to do that kind of figure. So it's kind of significant that that this is happening, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is significant. And I mean, obviously, the first part about when we talk about the Mothership is obviously it is scaled to work with 3 3/4 reaction.
Yeah.
But it also works with all your vintage 3 3/4 O-ring figures.
Yeah.
It is intended to be both a reaction vehicle and line extension for the vintage line.
Yeah.
Here's another vehicle you did not get as a 3 3/4 O-ring collector, back in the day.
Yeah.
So that said, and then when you go with the Sky Striker and everything else, they've been making some O-ring figures, and they always make the vehicles come with an O-ring figure. They always come with an O-ring figure. So we sort of petitioned them to say, like, look, if we're making this vehicle and it fits both reaction and should also have O-ring as well. And they were up for it, which was really nice.
That's great. Yeah.
Because I think it does make sense.
Yeah.
I think it does make sense.
Is it also is it like is this something that's going to be going forward beyond?
I think
the
the number one question is this your Trojan horse?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, we're working on reaction. There's stuff coming out. We've already got reaction wave 7, I believe, lands this month, next month, November. I think it lands in November.
Okay.
And then wave 8 is in February, and then there's a Target exclusive after that. That's the immediate future.
Yeah, I see.
Are those figures of reaction, and then we're working on fall as we speak.
Okay,
so we'll
interesting. With the O-ring and the Mothership situation going on here, do you guys want to do more O-ring? Is this the only kind of time we're going to see it? Like, I mean, do you want to kind of progress in the future? Do you want to do more?
Of course, we'd love to do more O-ring. I think that would be amazing. Right now, this is, we got approval for this one. That's what we're focused on.
Right.
And hopefully there'll be more opportunities in the future, but obviously this made a lot of sense. It fit right in, and hopefully people will dig it.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Do like the fact that we're getting O-ring stuff, at least in this particular Mothership scenario. This might be one of those questions that is very hard to answer. Obviously, you never know what the future holds.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Are you confident that the fan base is there for this kind of vehicle? And like, even if you are confident, or if you are confident, how do you think it's going to go all the way? Or do you think, what are your thoughts at the moment with the fan base and the kind of popularity of what you guys are doing?
I don't know, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Obviously, as much as I don't like to believe it's directed completely at that, during the pandemic, we definitely were seeing much more sales across the board.
Yeah.
Everything has slowed down. You've seen, all the retailers are still full of inventory. No one's buying.
Yeah.
Collectors aren't buying the same way. Like, there's definitely a different reality here in the last 12 months, I would say, than the previous years before that, 2 or 3 years before that. I just don't know. I can't get a clear read on it in that way. Do I know that this vehicle will fund? I don't know.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing. Like, when you look at a Sky Striker and you say, man, they sold 17,000 Sky Strikers. It seems like amazing, but I'm like, okay, did people buy the Sky Striker because they wanted the Sky Striker, or did 17,000 people buy it because they wanted the figures and they didn't care about getting the Sky Striker?
Yeah, there was probably a bit of both going in there, but yeah.
I don't know. I know that this vehicle, you could fit 3 or 4 Sky Strikers in this vehicle, you know, and this is definitely a little bit more expensive.
I mean, obviously, do you think that that plays a part in you know, whether something's going to fund or not? Basically, do you think there's a, because I mean, at the moment we are in a position where, like as you say, like you've come out of the kind of pandemics, sales are slightly different, and collectors are buying things in different ways. Because you know, I think. I don't know. I think if this comes out earlier, I think it's already funded. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like if it comes out when the O-ring thing is still really like a necessity almost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch sort of across all of this. I think anybody that's bothering to watch this video that we're now 20 plus minutes in, you know, whatever it may be, you know, they're into it. And they assume everybody they talk to is into it, but there's not as many people as you would think that are into it, or that actually, there might be a lot more that are into it, but how many people can put down the money?
Yeah.
It's an interesting sort of dynamic, which is, do you build the best version of this product that you could build?
Yeah.
Or do you build something that's kind of, it's okay, but it's more affordable?
Right.
And my take has been over the years to build the best version of it that I can. Like, if we're going to make it cool.
Yeah,
and
totally.
and then hopefully, you know, that will be why you want it, is because, you know what, it's awesome.
Oh, that's the thing as well. I haven't even seen it in person, and the thing looks incredible. Like, it's going to be an impressive piece to display any reaction or O-ring figures on. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I think it is one of those things where it fits really nicely into the vintage. You know, we talked about it earlier on about the vintage figures and everything, the vintage vehicles, but it fits really nicely into that theme, into the vehicles that already, you know, have been produced. And I was going to actually ask this question because I wasn't sure, and I haven't really seen it in person, so I can't really gauge. But is there a way for it to kind of sit on top of a Terradrome by chance? Does it like kind of sit nicely on the top of a Terradrome? Because how cool would that be?
I haven't even thought of that, quite honestly.
Get your researchers on that, because I want to see that. I want to see that balancing on the top of a Terradrome. That's what I want to see.
Before it squishes the Terradrome.
Yeah, the fire bat just goes bang. Why can't I get out of this prison? Yeah.
I don't know. It's not that I don't think that people like the idea. I think in general, and I think people are a little bit tighter on money than they used to be.
Yeah.
You know, I think people, once again, you know, it's an ongoing conversation with every toy collector with their memory about what they think things should cost versus what they do cost.
Yeah.
You know, like, these figures should be $5.99, and it's just like, man, like, go walk down the aisles. Like, you can't even get, you know,
well, I think that's kind of what I think a lot of kind of independent kind of, you know, creators come up against when they start their own Kickstarter campaign or something, and then it comes to the factory aspect, and it comes to tooling, and it comes to those elements that haven't really been, yes, they've been considered and thought about and researched, but then when it's like you've got to pay tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars on certain things, it's like, oh, I see now why that's the case. Do you know what I mean? Like,
tooling. The tooling estimate on this thing alone is like $400,000.
Oh my god! Oh, so, my goodness!
That's just the tooling estimate. Like, you know,
is there one big piece that's the size of it, or is it all broken down into much smaller pieces, or is there a piece that is pretty much the entire size of it?
There is the big sort of like the snake face coming all the way around, and then there's sort of the bottom. There are pieces, but still, it's just the sheer volume of it all.
That's nuts. That is absolutely,
you know, it's. I'll put it this way. If you think about, and if all the people here are sitting here going like, everybody, you know, G.I. Joe's huge, people buy the bejesus out of it. I'm like, all right, then 4,000 backers should be easy, right?
Right.
But 4,000 backers is not going to be easy.
No.
It's going to be a stretch. So that tells you very clearly and plainly how many people are really buying this stuff.
Yeah, totally. And
It's not as many as you think.
and you've even
And
said,
so,
you've said yourself that you've made, like, you know, you've aimed to make the best, coolest thing possible here. So there's no doubt about that, because the thing's amazing. Like I've watched that 3D video about 700 times now. It's so fun to go through the whole interior of it and almost be inside the thing. It's just incredible. I actually really like, on a side note, the kind of pilot and Cobra Commander kind of, you know, viewpoint area through the eyes of the snake, where you've got the globe kind of on there as well. That's really fun as well. There's just so many nice little kind of touches on there, and it's things like that that I think do push it over being just, like you say, like a vehicle, to being something really freaking cool.
and that's the goal. But once again, not to be Debbie Downer on it, I don't have a clear idea of if that's what, if there are enough people that are like, hell yeah, I want that, or if a whole bunch of people are like, look, I really only want the figures, I don't buy the spaceships.
Is
And I think those people will argue back and forth amongst themselves.
Were there any other considerations for other vehicles? You don't obviously tell me which ones they were, but did you guys consider any other things, or was this like, was it so like forefront of the, you know, of the brand for you guys that you wanted to do this from the off?
You know, I've always wondered why it was never made, but as we dug through it, we'd be like, oh, this guy's really, and then be like, nope, they made that. Nope, they made that. And you can get into all sorts of little subtle things like the jetpacks, the sort of generic wing jetpacks. It's like, okay, what was made wasn't actually like that, but that kind of made it. Will enough people care? You know, you know, could you improve upon a previous vehicle? Maybe, but do you really need to if you can buy the previous vehicle still for $40? Not really. You know, that's always the fine line too, which is I can take an old something, retweak it, make it cool, and get it out to you again. But the price for me to do so, it's like people would ask me all the time on Shogun Godzilla. Oh, now he has gotten more expensive, but you're going to make Shogun Godzilla again? It's like, I could, but if I retool that whole thing with how few people are buying it, you're going to pay $400 for it for me. For $400, you can buy a complete loose one. That's vintage. So do you need me to make that? I don't think that you do. And a lot of times you get people like, can you remake this so I don't have to spend a lot of money on the secondary market for it? And it's like, well, that doesn't really work either. You know,
well, it's not made to order.
When I make it, the one in the secondary market's theoretically going to drop, and then I'll buy that one. Why would I buy yours? It's the same price as the vintage one.
There's an interesting balance to all of this, isn't there, as well? Like it's an odd ecosystem that's constantly forever changing. It's weird. It's like a funny weird stock market, isn't it? Basically.
I maybe I don't know. I've never thought about it in stock market terms. It's just an interesting thing where it as I think that the perception, of course, is that we're this huge company. And, you know, granted, in terms of independent toy manufacturers, yes, we are. But the reality of what we are compared to actual toy manufacturers is still, you know, we're a flea on the dog. Like, you know, it just happens to be, you know, this is the window that you're looking into. So you're like, oh, okay, this is huge. And it's like, well, all things are relative. I feel like I'm being so negative about it. I'm not trying to be, but it's like, and I'm harping on this. It's just, you know, it's the
reality. And
the reality is that this is far smaller and far more expensive than most people want to believe. Because they're excited about it.
That's a good point.
That, everybody would buy it. Well, no, everybody will not buy it.
Everybody might be excited.
People will buy it. And then even of those small group of people, there's any number of factors that keep them from buying or not buying it, depending on what else they're buying.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It's like, it's the niche of a niche scenario. It keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you kind of go, you know, through all of the factors and the variables. And yeah, I totally understand that. Let's talk about the fun stuff though, because
let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's talk about the fun stuff.
This thing is amazing. It comes with, there's obviously going to be a lot of different things to kind of touch on here. We've got an early bird special. So if it funds, that's the 4K reach. If it reaches that 4K number by the 22nd, which is like 4 days from this recording.
4 days from now.
Then that's where you unlock the parachutes. So
your Cobra commander can parachute off of his exploding trouble bubble, just like the intro.
Exactly. And also, parachutes synonymous with the Sunbow kind of, cartoon as well. Everyone had a parachute for every single scenario, it felt like, just because they couldn't kill anybody, which was hilarious, I thought. Also, tier 1 unlock. That is pretty interesting, because obviously when I first saw this thing, I was kind of looking, it doesn't have the little guns at the front that, I think we see Tomax and Zama on. I think we see Destro on at one point in the intro. Yeah. That going to be little attachments for that tier 1 unlock, which is a good little kind of maneuver there. I think that's a good idea. Yeah,
it's once again, you want to make the unlocks feel like additional pieces, so that if they don't unlock, somebody goes, they didn't finish my vehicle.
Right.
Like that vehicle is complete at 4,000. It's got all the bells and whistles. And it's like, okay, what are those? Well, and you could, and it was sort of like, well, and we could put the guns on the front. So that felt like a unlock.
Yeah. That makes sense, actually. And again, you get a sticker sheet with that tier 1 unlock as well, which I think is...
you can never have enough sticker sheets.
Well, according to this particular campaign, that is actually true. We get a sticker sheet, obviously, for the base offering. We get the 3 stands with the kind of like, the really cool little stands.
Thrusters.
Thank you. Yeah. That's much better. The 8 kind of bombs as well, which are really neat. And then like basically 2 trouble bubble missiles. Do they attach anywhere? So, for example, if you don't get the trouble bubbles on
that is a typo.
Oh, right. I'll stop talking. 2 missiles.
The trouble bubble missiles should come with the trouble bubbles.
Right. So, do they not come with the base offering, or is that a different missile?
I think we are now locked into it now that we've announced it. But when it went up, I was like, the trouble bubble missiles should be the trouble bubbles.
It's good skills. Well, speaking of trouble bubbles, tier 2 unlock. And that is again, that was a nice little addition here, and obviously I'm assuming this is really just because of their appearance in that intro coming out of the
they're pretty tied to the Mothership. They're a very popular vehicle. I mean, you can also get the vintage ones still pretty easily, but it's like, we could make some new and improved trouble bubbles that could fit in here and work. But once again, they're not necessities to getting the Mothership.
It's nice to have that little parking area for them, though, inside. I do like that.
They sit the ramp. Well, it's also the ramp, so they sit on the ramp, and then you can bring the ramp down for all your Cobra to deploy. And,
I think I saw the pictures from the show floor at NYCC, and you guys had that laid out. I think the ramp was down and all of the troops were walking out of it. It looks absolutely so cool like that.
Well, that's another one where people go, I can't tell how big it really is. I'm like, look at how many figures are in there, and they're pretty spaced out. Like,
how many figures does it contain in one go? Did you guys do that test?
I mean, we did not do that test because you could probably jam a whole lot in there. Somebody else asked me that, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like, a lot, a whole lot.
Yeah, it does look massive, which is obviously phenomenal. You've thrown in the tier 3 unlock as well. You've thrown in the Redeco Viper Gunner and Viper Officer. Based on anything in particular, the grey and the red? Was that the...
It was, once again, we're looking at a lot of the vintage Viper and vintage Joe figures, and, the storyline, at least on our side, is if you've got gunners and you've got that, you're going to have an officer.
Right.
Just sort of similar when we did the space wave 1 reaction.
Yes.
We made infantrymen and an officer.
Right.
Because every other version of of Cobra as well, there's always the regular and the officer, and the officer, regular and the officer. So if you've got a gunner, you got to have an officer.
I love them. I love that deco. It's really nice, and yeah, it is evocative of that a kind of original. I say original. I think they only did it in the modern 4-inch, and then obviously in classified as well, but still really cool. Right, currently you guys are sitting at I think you probably already know this anyway, but I'm looking at 623 backers, and that's gone up quite significantly from the other day when I checked it as well. So it seems to be moving quite
seems to be moving
nicely. Yeah,
I think, and the psychology of these fundings are always so interesting, because I can never tell who's real, who's not real, what comments to take to heart, what comments not to take to heart. We know that the last 24 hours will be, I don't know if I'm going to do it or not, but you have, I know that there's a whole lot of people who are like, I don't want to back it if it's not going to reach the goal, which always seems so very odd to me, because if you don't back it, it definitely won't make the goal.
Yeah, there's a weird psychology to it. Yeah, definitely.
Well, and I think too, to a degree, when we put stuff like this up, they're like, oh, they're big, it's fine.
Right.
Versus like, if we had done this like, hey, small indie company, and it's on Kickstarter, everybody and their grandmother would be like, oh my God, these guys came out of nowhere with the most amazing thing. I'm going to back this day one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's SUPER7. Don't worry about it. We'll get,
Right. I think there's a lot of psychology that goes into that 100%.
And the reality is there is not it'll, show up later. I think that there is a misconception on that, simply because, if you want some of our other bigger items, like if you want a Snake Mountain, they're about $1,200 these days, but you can get one, but mostly because a bunch of retailers bought extras.
Yeah.
Because they could. With Thunder Tanks, you can get them because a lot of retailers bought extra, but then a lot of retailers bought them pre-pandemic. They delivered post-pandemic, or in pandemic, post-pandemic, canceled a bunch of orders. So there was a lot of inventory all of a sudden that became available, that wouldn't normally be available because we make to order. I think you'll see on the Turtle Van, which is shipping from the factory right now.
Awesome.
That'll be here, in the next 6 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on where you live, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're not get I know what we made. I know what people do. You're not going to see a lot of those around.
Yeah.
They're not going to be available. It's not going to be like, oh, I bought a whole bunch extra. It's like, nope. I think when Cat's Lair lands, it'll be the same situation.
Oh my God, Brian, the Cat's Lair! How dare you? That thing is unbelievable.
That thing is preposterous. And I think the other thing, there's a lot of people like, why is the Cat's Lair this price, but this price? And it's like, the Cat's Lair is big, but it's also fairly open. There's a lot of open space. There's a lot of things like this thing.
There's a lot.
You really think about it. It's like, all right, it's 3 feet wide, but then you have the base, you have the floor, you have the top, then you have all the stuff that goes in between and everything. It's like, no, this thing's got almost, if you take those 3 levels away, it's like, all right, here's the center, here's the left, here's the right, like in just roof, of floor, and then bottom of the ship. Like, it's still
that thing's involved. It's got so much going on. It's brilliant. But yeah, no, I totally see where you're coming from there. But the Cat's Lair, dude, I mean, when we heard you guys were doing a 6-inch scale one of those, wow. Or 7-inch, sorry, 7-inch scale, technically.
If it was, it would be the size of, like, Des Moines. It's more just, I think there's also a perception of, I'll be able to get it later.
Right.
Because for better or for worse, over the years, our product, I'd like to phrase it as this. Somebody else will come into the comments surely and tell me it's not, but is that the product is really good. People really like it. So retailers, especially online retailers, have bought in deep to carry inventory later that we are not making. They are taking the risk on.
Right.
I'm just making to order, but they're making the order saying, I want to have this for a year.
Right.
Obviously, they're doing that far less now. So there is, I think, a perception too of like, oh, I'll be able to get this later. I don't need to back this. And it's like, that that ship has sailed.
Right, right.
Everybody's tight these days. They're not over ordering.
Yeah.
They're ordering to order, and it'll come in and it'll come out, and that'll be about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that once again, there's a perception thing there. I think, like I said, if it was a small independent person or different thing and they were kickstartering it off, people would go crazy. I think because it's us, you know,
yeah,
the
you're
sense
right.
of urgency is not there.
It's removed a little bit totally, and yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's the same as well with a lot of, like, you know, HasLabs or with Kickstarters from companies that have done it before, like that have, you know, had that kind of, you know, they've done those kind of projects in the past. And I think it's definitely that psychology about it is so true. It's like there's a real compulsion for people to not get in until it's funded, or not get in and because they want to, you know, they just want to see how it goes, kind of thing. And yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
Do you want in because you want it, or you want in because everybody else is in?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Yeah, that's the yeah. And obviously, you know, cost does come into it on a lot of occasions. But if you're going to get something, if you're going to be buying something, then, you know, you're going to make that commitment at some point. You might as well make it at the beginning to get it funded in the first place.
Yes. So that's an open call. Please help fund the Cobra Mothership so I can make it, because I think it's rad. And I think you're going to think it's rad because it's crazy.
It needs to exist.
You're going to love it.
It needs to exist. And, well, even if it doesn't fund, at least you guys have got that amazing model of it that you can have forever. There you go.
I will have the model. Nobody else gets
Yeah, that's yours. You get to keep it.
Mine. You can't play with my toys.
Finally, on the Mothership, before we move on to Ultimates updates, you've got a couple of add-ons here that you can throw in. This is, I believe, after it's Is this after it's funded and for those that backed it? Or if you've backed it, you can jump
you're backing it,
right.
you can also order. Yeah.
Okay. And that's 5-pack of the Reaction Vipers, and, of course, 5-pack of the O-Ring Vipers. This is the only way you're going to get those, right? Right, the 5-packs?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Just
so, I mean,
obviously
the figure comes with it. You know, a figure comes with it.
Right.
That's great. But there's 6 chairs. And I was like, there's totally going to be a guy go like, 1 figure, 6 chairs. The math doesn't work here.
Right.
So we're like, all right, if you buy in, you can, you know, we call it fill your ship, I think.
Nice.
You know, you're saying you can buy extras to fill all the seats. Not everybody's going to want that.
Right.
But if you are that person that's like, no, I need 1 for every seat, you can buy 5 more figures to fill it up.
Did you not think people should just buy 6 of the Motherships to make sure they...
Wouldn't that be nice?
Could you
Wouldn't
imagine?
that be nice?
That would be crazy.
It
Anyway,
would be crazy.
That is a Mothership. As Brian said, yeah, go get it funded. Link in the description right now. Let's get this thing over the line so we can get some of those stretch goal type tier scenarios reached as well, because it's amazing. This thing is ridiculous, Bud. And like, I know you get a lot of horrible comments to put up with, but I want to give you a nice comment, and I want to say this thing is beautiful. What you guys have done is fantastic, and I really do hope it funds. I really do hope we at least get that base model, if not the rest of the tiers as well, but I really hope it does, because this thing needs to exist in the G.I. Joe sphere. It needs to exist anyway. So I think, yeah, this is one of those ones where I would say you guys have done a phenomenal job of, you know, presenting it as well. Like, it's just absolutely spot on across the board. I love all the little features. It's great. So, you know, hopefully that makes up for any of the rough comments you guys get. Not all of them, obviously.
You know, the commentary hasn't been so much like this stinks. It's just been more like, I want this to be $100, you know, or
yes,
you know, whatever. I think most people see it, and it's like, if you see the interior pictures, I think you can imagine the play. Yep. Like, you imagine yourself sliding the doors and put somebody in jail, and, you know, putting somebody in a chair, you know, and lifting the gun turrets up and stuff like that. Like, I think people see the fun in it. I think it's just, you know, the commentary, of course, is usually just centered around how do you make this for $5, and it's like, that doesn't exist.
Good luck. Yeah,
because look, I mean, quite frankly, if I could make it for cheaper, I'd probably sell more.
Totally,
But
yeah. But it's,
you know,
it's
I don't.
I know exactly what you're saying.
But that's not really it. I feel like we're back on our negative again. Uh, it's a super fun spaceship. It's a super fun. I say spaceship because it looks like a spaceship. It's not a spaceship. Clearly, it's a vehicle. But
It's
I mean,
Sunbow. It can go in space. Goodness
it's a
me.
giant round thing that looks like a snake. Come on, it's a spaceship.
Do you know what? I never realised, because I'd never really given it any thought, that the actual shape was the Cobra symbol originally.
What do you mean you
I
never got?
I never thought about it.
You're a professional GI Joe guy.
I know. Like, and I've seen that intro a million times, and I just thought, wow, it's cool. They've made a big round space, like, you know, like a spaceship. They made a big round ship, and I'd never gave it any thought at all until I saw you guys pictures of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's a Cobra symbol. So I just want to.
You've lost credibility. You've lost.
I don't have any credibility. I think it's funnier to tell whenever I make these hilarious mistakes than to just not bother. So anyway, yeah, but honestly, it's because I've never given it any thought is the actual reason.
Because you never spent a whole lot of time looking at the top of that spaceship.
I didn't. And then all of a sudden,
that part too.
And then all of a sudden, I see all your amazing pictures. I love this one as well of the kind of troops, and it just kind of like with the stand, and that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Again,
the amount of time that we spent making sure it had that look, because it's got to have that snake face first look coming at you, you know.
Love it, dude. It's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Anyway, let's finish on some Ultimates updates.
Okay.
Because I don't want to keep you too much longer. Apologize. We've been on for ages now, and I know time
That's
is
right.
money.
Come on, Chris.
I appreciate
Christopher.
Yeah, full name, please. Christopher William David McLeod.
All right. Now that we've got 4 names, it's very British of you.
How many names do you have, Brian?
3.
You're never going to tell me your middle name, are you?
Yeah, identity theft online.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, I'll read out my social security next. Right. Okay. So Ultimates updates.
Yes.
Wave 3, I want to say, is next up.
Wave 3 is very quick. I thought it is going to be in people's hands like within weeks, I think.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's done and dusted. Like it should be here.
You guys have been showing off some of your Ultimates in displays as well, like with some of the first shots and the samples and all that kind of stuff. They look really cool. Is it Wave 4 as well that you guys have had on show?
Wave 4 with that waving hair baroness at you.
Sensational. Yeah, I love that one.
It is. That line, I mean, that wave is so good.
They all are.
I think all the waves are good.
They all are. So what the Wave 3 is what Storm Shadow, Doc, Scarlet,
and Scarlet, Storm Shadow, Doc, Scarlet, and
Trooper.
Yes,
Cobra Trooper.
But for everybody here, if you missed some Ultimates and you want to try your hand at Ultimates, if you're a guy who's like, I just need to see them in hand before I try, Walmart will have some G.I. Joe Ultimates on shelf here, I think, next week.
Wow.
Some G.I. Joe Ultimates will be at some Walmarts.
Interesting.
Because they always break it down to like, there's 4,000 Walmarts and 2,000 have this kind of setup and 1,200 have this kind of setup and 800 and 600 and 400. So I don't know the breakdown, but Walmart was like, we want some Joe Ultimates.
Cool.
So there are some Joe Ultimates that will be on shelf at Walmart later this month. It's right at the end of October. I assume when they start yanking out basically all the Halloween stuff, it's like, it's a week before Halloween. We're done.
Yeah.
There's a reset or something happening there, but
that's
you
great.
Will have a chance to actually walk in and check out an Ultimate from G.I. Joe if you have not before.
Just out of interest, Brian, because I know obviously they come in shipper boxes normally. Are they going to be sold like without those shipper boxes, like just kind of the actual?
Will not have the shipper box with
window.
a sleeve.
Right? Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
They'll just have the window. But I mean, that's neat because obviously we're a long way away. But like having something that people can walk in and see, I think is dramatically different than having to pre-order a year in advance. Now,
right.
That said, that doesn't mean we're going to stop the pre-order. It doesn't mean that every Ultimate will be available. By no means. By no means. They picked up a couple and that's it, and they're going to see how it does.
Okay, that's really nice to know. And is it only on the West Coast or is it spread across the US? Did you say?
I have no idea. Walmart.
Walmart. Okay.
Walmart.
Well, yeah, because that narrows it down. No, that's
that
totally
narrows
cool.
it down. So, but hopefully that gives a chance for same thing. The people that might be buying classified and they're like, I'm not sure about this. Like, oh, if you can walk in and pick one up, you can check it out, see if you dig it.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, I my assumption is when people get them in hand, because you have them in hand.
Oh, they're gorgeous. Gorgeous figures.
When people get them in hand, they're gonna be like, oh, now I get it. Where maybe they don't, looking at pictures. We'll see.
No, I definitely have to attest to that. I like them anyway in the pictures, but having them in hand, I was like, these things are just, they're next level. They're gorgeous things. What I would say as well is last time we spoke, there was the whole non-painted heads issue that we had to go through, and But
Wave 3 has painted heads.
There we go. That's all. Wave
2 is supposed to have painted heads.
That's all. I think. Yeah, I think we had a few people kind of in the comments say you better ask him about it, and I'm like, okay, there you go, done, sorted.
There you go. Yes, painted heads.
That's all. Yeah, there you go. Fantastic stuff. And I think that's pretty much it. Obviously, like I said, the only other thing was the test shots we saw for, I want to say, CoverGirl, Major Blood, Crimson Guard, and somebody else.
Those are engineering outputs.
Right, they look freaking amazing though, those figures. Do you want to give any time frames on it, or rough time frames on any of the other waves?
That is information that exists, but I do not have it. I'm not prepared. I came to this meeting prepared.
How dare you?
On Mothership and stuff. I am not as prepared on that. I think I want to say.
No pressure. It's fine. We'll just say the future.
If I've even got a spreadsheet handy.
Just say the future.
Like, there's ways for me to figure it out, but I'm living in 2025 right now, so.
I forget. You guys are always about 2 years ahead of the game, aren't you? Trying to think about the next
18
thing.
months usually. Yeah. 18 to 24.
Well, I'm sure it's got to be 2024.
I know when the turtles are landing. it's in this cheat sheet. I do not have when G.I. Joe is landing. It's totally fine. But I will tell you that we are going to have a wave of G.I. Joe in February for Joe Day.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
There's going to be something coming for Joe Day.
Is that Ultimates related?
Yes.
Okay. Freaking
There's a Joe Day special in February.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. Yeah, brilliant. I can't wait for that. I will bring this interview to a close so you can tell me what that is. Just kidding. Anyway, Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for joining me. I know, like, I always joke about the time is precious scenario, but I do really appreciate you coming on here. And
I'm happy to talk toys with anybody anytime for the most part. People would say like, oh, in New York, both Toy Fair and at Comic-Con, they're like, oh man, I can't believe you're here. I'm like, I get to talk about toys for 4 days straight. Like,
why wouldn't you do it? Yeah, totally.
Exactly. Like, this is great.
Well, I just want to say good luck with the campaign. What I was also going to suggest is if there's going to be another reveal, like, is it next month you were saying? Maybe we could talk again before the end of the year and obviously see where the campaign is and talk a little bit more about it kind of halfway through. Give it the kind of midway bump sort of scenario. Not that I'm going to do anything to help that, but you know what I'm saying?
No, I think everybody hearing about, I think all roads help. I think, yeah.
Brian, thank you so much for joining me, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll get you back on before the end of the campaign, obviously, to talk about the next reveal that you guys have got. I'm also excited for G.I. Joe Day, which is quite some way away now, but I'm still excited now to see what you guys have planned. Thanks for jumping on, dude. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your, what are we in, Wednesday? Rest of your week.
Yeah. Great rest of October. That's what we're going for. That's
true. Yeah. Let's get Halloween out of the way. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this interview. Thank you to my wonderful guest, Brian Flynn from Super7.
And thanks for having me, Christopher.
You know what to do after all these episodes. After 3, do you remember? You're gonna have to do it. Do you want to do Cobra instead? Because it's the Mothership. Should we shout Cobra instead?
Yes.
Okay. After 3, 1, 2, 3. Cobra! Brilliant.
Access granted.
Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce podcast, or click on the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.
Access granted.